Hey, James McBride here. Glad you're with me. Let's take a look at Wi-Fi or wireless network technologies. Now, it's really important to understand the basis of this because we use Wi-Fi so much. And when you have Wi-Fi at your house, you're the one responsible for setting it up. So you need to know, okay, this is how Wi-Fi is working. And that's why it's a problem. So there's these great things about Wi-Fi, but it also causes major issues. So we're going to take a look, just a little quick look at how Wi-Fi is functioning. Well, Wi-Fi, as I said, is wireless fidelity. Just means we're using radio waves, just like AM, FM radio, just like cell towers use radio waves, satellites use radio waves. They're all different radio waves, but they're radio waves nonetheless. So they all act the same. So what happens in your house is you have a router sitting someplace, a Wi-Fi router, and that's pushing the signal out in a circle around it. It is just like taking a pebble, throwing it into a pond, or a huge rock, throwing it into a pond, and then watching the waves move out. That's what it's doing. It's emitting the signal, and those waves are coming out. This is exactly what your device does as well. So you could say that this is not the router, this is you on your phone, and it's doing the same exact thing. Now, this is a flat view. Three-dimensional view would show that it kind of looks like a donut. It just kind of balloons out from that point, right? It's three-dimensional, so the signal is moving out and becoming broader. And the further it gets away, the weaker the signal is because of the fact that you are going through a medium, which is the air. You're going through that, and it's going to hit obstructions and so on. But normally you're going to get 30 to 90 meters. It'll be enough for your home, unless you got a really, really small router. So what do we do? Well, when you say, let's say you go over to your friend's house and you say, "Hey, what's your Wi-Fi? What's your wireless password?" And they say, "Oh, my Wi-Fi is Bubba 42, and here's the wireless password." So when you hit connect, when you hit that, and then it's going to come up and say you need to put in the password here, or it does that to begin with, you're exchanging information with the wireless router, and you're both agreeing on a certain set of rules, and that's called the handshake process. And it encrypts at that point. There's an encryption that happens so that the passphrase or password is not sent in clear text that somebody could just pick up and see. So it encrypts it. And then finally, it gets into it's okay, your password was correct. And now we're going to go through and put in all these settings. You're compliant with WPA2 or 3 or whatever it happens to be. So that's what we're doing. And then from then on, it's all encrypted. So somebody on the outside of that can't easily see what is happening. As a matter of fact, that encryption is strong enough that somebody can't just absorb the signal and then hack the encryption. That this doesn't work that way. The encryption is far beyond what a computer can hack. So they need to get into the network. They need to be a part of your network, part of that encryption, and then that's a different thing. So all of this travels through our airwaves, through the radio waves, through Wi-Fi. Doesn't matter what it is, all of it does. And it takes less power. I don't have this on here and I should have it. But I want to mention that again, that one of the reasons to connect to Wi-Fi is it takes less power. You're only pushing the data to a local router. You're not trying to push it 5 miles or 10 miles to some cell network. So when you stay on the cell network, which is very convenient, it'll drain your battery quicker than if you're on Wi-Fi. But there's some trade-offs with that as we'll look at the security. And that's a problem. But I want to throw that out there because again, if you're traveling, then that's something you think about. You think, well, I don't want to burn through my battery and have to charge and burn through my battery and have to charge. You want to save that battery. Anyway, so your device connects to the Wi-Fi router, and you can tell that I took this information and dumped it in an AI and it built this for me. That is definitely not what your Wi-Fi router looks like. Yeah, the AI is going to take over the world. I think we got a while. Anyway, so you hit the Wi-Fi router. The Wi-Fi router then takes and changes that information and puts it onto your modem. So normally there's a device in your network called a modem, and it translates that, as I said before. And then that goes to the ISP, the internet service provider, and then that they connect to the internet. So you're taking wireless and you're then converting it into a cabled signal. For me, that's fiber optic. So it hits this cable copper network, then goes over to the fiber optics. It converts it to fiber and it goes out to the ISP. Now, if you're using something like the new Verizon stuff where you just get this node, basically this box, and that provides you Wi-Fi and it converts it from wireless, the Wi-Fi, into cell Wi-Fi and uses the cell network. Anytime you're staying on Wi-Fi, it's going to be slower. Now, I know that's not totally true because you may have a wired connection that's really slow. But just standardly, you just need to understand that if you can take a signal and concentrate it onto a line, that is going to always be faster than Wi-Fi is, always. So if you can take that signal, put it on a line, then it's faster. As a matter of fact, at my house, because teach networking and stuff, I have cabled runs. I have cabled lines going to my smart TV or my smart devices. I just cable that. I don't put them on the wireless network. I save the wireless network for phones and for computers, and I get the data from these streaming boxes or game machines off. I get them off if I can because it's faster. Their connection is going to be faster. All right, so security protects your network, and what ends up happening is the password becomes super important now. That password or that Wi-Fi network password or passphrase is super important because that's what leads to the encryption. So we want the encryption to kick on and start working, and that really prevents strangers from just getting on your network and doing whatever they want. It also stops those people from spying on your data because again, go back to the beginning here. That signal's going all over the place. So when you're sitting there in a restaurant and you're connected to their Wi-Fi and so is everybody else, their signal is hitting your phone. Your signal is hitting their phone. That's the way it works. So you definitely want that encryption going so that they can't just spy on your data. And then, of course, it prevents strangers from joining your network. It blocks unauthorized internet use that you don't want them on that internet. So there's your simple analogy. I love what AI put in here. Here's your main router. That is nowhere near a router, is it? That is just not a router. Anyway, and you're going like this, but the situation is that you're all using the airwaves. Everybody that's using this stuff is using the airwaves. So when this wants to transmit data to you, it has to use the entire airwave to then talk to your device. And then when you answer, you have to use the entire airwave to talk to this device. If you both send out data at the same time, then that data smashes into each other. When you're dealing with the same radio frequency, you're both transmitting on that same channel, then boom, it hits and nobody gets anywhere. So you have to think of it like a walkie-talkie where you're talking, talking, talking. And the new walkie-talkies these days, right? You lift the button off and it goes bleep. And the reason why it does that is so the other end knows you stopped talking. So that means they can talk. And you hear a tone, and then you know they're going to talk because it's radio waves. You can't talk at the same time and be able to understand each other. That's not the way it works. For those of us that are older, or for those of you that are educated youth, then you'll know that if you have a radio station like 102.7 or whatever, and there's another 102.7 just down the road, then they conflict with each other. If you've ever been on a long road trip and you're tuned in to FM or AM radio, you'll be on a station and it'll last and last, and then it starts to get fuzzy, and then you pick up another station entirely. And sometimes it's so bad that it keeps switching back and forth. Yeah, that's the same thing. You're on the same channel, and those channels conflict. They cannot work at the same time. So that's how Wi-Fi works. Now let's take a look at what problems occur because of Wi-Fi. So let's take a look at the issues, the security problems that happen. The biggest problem is that you have a signal coming out from your phone, coming out from your computer, that is going everywhere. It just, if there's a big window where you're sitting, it's going straight out the window and it's going down the block. It'll go for a while. So wireless signal exposure is a problem. It goes well beyond the reach of your walls. And there's like you can get a job just in technology working with wireless because companies want to lessen that. They don't want their network exposed 2 miles down the road. Now that's a really weak signal, but you still don't want it, right? Security issues happen because users don't really understand the danger that it poses. When you're dealing with a wired network, you just plug into it, and then that plug goes over to where the switch is. That's the way it goes. And it's very hard to get that information unless you're inside. You can actually clip onto the cable, and when you clip onto the cable, you can read that signal. But Wi-Fi, you don't have to be in the same room. You can be well away from anybody and be hacking them. That's why a lot of hacks happen in airports because people will be there hacking because everybody's on Wi-Fi. So security issues arise because people don't know how to set up their routers and even, they make it really simple to set it up. People don't really understand the danger of not setting it up correctly. Also, when they set it up, a lot of times they don't put on the automatic updates. And so that router has got old firmware, is what we call it. And that's got security holes in it. And people that will want to hack your network will look for that kind of stuff. Of course, you might be connecting to an unsafe network, and that exposes you to some advanced hacking techniques that we're going to look at here. So device security is really important. You need to have that password very strong. You need to have the signal going where you want it to go. So yeah, common weak passwords, easy to guess, easy to hack. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Risks of unauthorized access because of this. And again, also because the wireless signal is not staying in your house, it's going down the road. So you really have to use a long, unique password with mixed characters, and that greatly reduces the risk. Now, really what we're talking about, and I'll show you this in the technical. So if you really want to know, this is how you set up a router, watch that practical application of it. But you're dealing with two different passwords. There's a password to configure the router, to change the settings of the router. And then there's a password that allows you on the Wi-Fi, on the wireless. And lots of times that one's called a passphrase. And so you have to have these two things that are really well done, that you really thought about so that people can't just get in and hack. As a matter of fact, I'll just mention it now. There's a device known as a Pwnagotchi, and it's one of many of these types of devices. And we actually make one in class. It's the good use of it. Why we make one in class is because you can test your network with it and see if it can hack your password. And it does it all automatic. And most people's passwords are not that good. And this little device will hack it within 5 or 6 seconds. And so somebody can just have one of those and it'll say, oh, there's James McBride's network. Let me work on this. Oh, there's his password. And it's ready to go. So yeah, it's easily done these days. All right, so eavesdropping, listening in. Yeah, it's the wireless signal's going all over the place. So I can pick up your data that you're transmitting. Now, again, if I'm not on that network, then this is all encrypted. Very hard for me to actually crack that. But if I can get into the network, now that's a different thing, right? So eavesdropping or secretly listening to data traveling over unsecured Wi-Fi. Types of data risks, Wi-Fi data like visiting web pages, messages, details can be intercepted if not encrypted. And again, that should be encrypted. Uh, these days it'll warn you. This is really, really rare. To actually find a network that is not encrypted is extremely rare. And your device will tell you this is not encrypted. And so you need to go, I shouldn't even bother being on this device because they don't have to hack me. They can just listen to everything. and then they're looking at my messages because right, those messages are hitting the router and then going out the router to whoever you sent the message to, but it's also going straight over to the person that's also connected to the same Wi-Fi. So if it's an open, no encrypted network, no encryption on the network, then anybody can read that stuff. But that's very rare these days. It's extremely rare for that to happen. Okay, anyway, eavesdropping can expose that sensitive data, and then you want to prevent it using secure websites, protected Wi-Fi networks. It is true that even on an open network, once you logged into the website, that would be encrypted data between you and the computer that you're using. However, the login was sent clear, and they could have gotten it at that point. So I don't want people to think, well, I'm on this open network and it's warning me that nothing's encrypted, but oh, as soon as I log into my Gmail, it'll be encrypted. Yeah, but they can get that login at the time you send it. That's the problem. All right, so fake Wi-Fi networks. This is a big issue. Okay, so if we're gonna say, which is true, that this wireless network is all encrypted and somebody on the outside that's getting my signal can't read it anyway, then if I'm a hacker, what do I need to do? I need to be on the inside of that network. And if I'm on the inside of that network and they didn't set it up properly, then I will see their data. Okay, so the proper way to do it, which, if you talk about an airport, this is what an airport's going to do. They're going to have a sophisticated wireless device, wireless access point. And that wireless access point is going to create an encrypted not a tunnel. The data again is blowing out everywhere, but the encryption between you and that is different than the encryption for the next person, for the next person, for the next person. And that makes it harder for hackers. So hacker gets on the network and now they're encrypted to the access point. You get on the network and you're encrypted to the access point and the encryption is different, then they still can't see what's happening. And that's a very sophisticated system. In a standard system, basically, let's say the home network and somebody's outside and they really want to hack my network. So let's say they do. So I'm encrypted to the access point and they're encrypted with the same encryption to the access point. So they're on the inside of that and now they can monitor that traffic and pick up that data. Unless once I get in logged into, yeah, another layer, logged into my Gmail, that's encrypted. So you've got the wireless that's being encrypted and the data flow from Google that's being encrypted, two encryptions that are happening. And then, right, that's a whole nother level that they may have been able to steal my user ID and password for, but once that channel's encrypted, that's a whole nother thing for them to have to do. So, users often connect automatically or choose familiar names without verifying network authenticity. So fake Wi-Fi networks, evil twins, that's what they're called. Basically, what happens is this is a very plausible scenario. You go over to some hotel in Phoenix, you got kids got a game or whatever it happens to be, and they tell you, they say, okay, well, here's our wireless network. This is the name of it, and this is what you type to get in. Okay, fantastic. You go up and there's the network and you type it in and you're in. But was that really their system or was it a different system? So what somebody could do is up on the top floor, I could be in there and I could say, okay, so this is what they named their system. I'm going to name mine that. This is what they say to type in the password for. That's what I'm going to put on mine. Then when you look on your phone, you see hotel Wi-Fi and you see hotel Wi-Fi. You see it duplicated. And if you hit the wrong one, you're actually coming to my Wi-Fi. And now, yeah, that's encrypted between you and me, but now I can unencrypt that and see it because it's hitting and decrypting when it hits the wireless router. Then I can see that data. And so that happens, and it happens quite a bit. People that want to hack this look and say, okay, that's what the network is. And so I'll just duplicate that and I'll pick up some people, right? Some people will hit that and it'll be wrong. I tell people all the time, hey, if you're traveling, you really need to do any kind of banking, anything like that off of your cell phone. If your cell phone has a hotspot, then use that, right? So you make a hotspot for your computer and you use that. Because with hotels, with airports, you're going to see situations where there's these double networks because somebody's trying to hack you. And that's just what it is. So tapping into a fake network or an evil twin is a real concern. That allows you to monitor, steal your information. So don't just attach to anything. That's what they're saying here. Avoid connecting to unfamiliar networks in public places. Don't just say, oh, well, my battery's getting low. Here's a network I can attach to. Here we go. Because you don't really know what's on the other side of that. All right, so part of that I just explained would be a man-in-the-middle attack. An attacker intercepts your communication by positioning themselves between the user and the Wi-Fi network. So you attach to my router, I monitor what you're doing, and then we send it on down to the real thing. So you don't see that, oh, wait, I don't have an internet. Oh, you do, but I can see it first. So they can intercept the data, they can read it, they can alter it before it gets sent out. This is usually invisible to you. You're not aware that it's happening. And then using secure networks and trusted connections reduces that risk. And again, when you're going to a hotel, you don't know. You don't know if you can trust them. You don't know if that's the right one. That's why I say, yeah, I use Wi-Fi in the hotel network, but it's going to be to check something. It's not going to be like, oh, let me get into my bank account. All right, so this is what I cover in the practical is how do you set up these routers? This is a really, really low end router. But anyway, default password, people will just leave the password. And the reason this happens is because usually you get this paper fold out or you get a wizard that helps you. So they'll say connect your phone. And so you connect your phone and it goes through this process of setting up your network, but people don't complete the process. So let's say it has 12 steps. By the time you get to step 6, you are now connected to the internet. And lots of people are like, oh, sweet, because I don't need the rest of this. And they just don't do it. That's the big problem. That I'm not joking. That's the biggest problem. If follow their instructions, if you follow the instructions, it will have you go through and change the default password. It'll have you put in a passphrase. It'll make sure that everything is set up correctly so that by the time you get to the end of it, there's a lot less chance that somebody can just hit that network. What'll happen is every device, let's see, yeah, I don't see it on here. Every device will come with a default name. So for instance, it'll be Linksys underscore 2G, Linksys underscore 5G. And it's not G's like the cell networks. But anyway, and so it comes with that default name. People then find that the internet's working and they're connected, so they're fine. We don't need to do the rest. Well, then the hacker is out there and they're actually browsing around the neighborhood. They're just driving around. They call it war driving. And they drive around and they pick up these little Wi-Fi networks. And when one comes up and it says Linksys this, then they go, that's one that was never finished configuring. So I'm going to hit that one. It is the low-hanging fruit. If I see a network name that's the default, then I figure you didn't finish the process and I'll get onto your network. And there's reasons for that to get on your network because I can steal your personal data, but more importantly, to get on your network so I can hide my activity. I had a student in one of my classes and I was telling the general students, so this is not a techie class, look, you need to finish the setup because this is a problem. And I said, mainly because people want to hide on your network and do bad stuff. Kid raises his hand. I say kid, but he's like 22, 23 probably. I say, yeah. He says, yeah, I went over to ASU to begin with. I was over at ASU and I lived in an apartment complex and there's just tons of Wi-Fi, right? Everybody had Wi-Fi. And I just took the attitude of like, I don't care, somebody wants to use my internet, they can use it. And so he didn't secure it. He didn't change the default password and admin and anything like that. One day he gets a knock at the door and the FBI is there and they walk in and they start asking him questions. And I had to ask him, so they have those blue jackets with the yellow lettering? He was like, yeah, yeah, it's like X-Files, right? They just look exactly like that. And they asked him all these weird questions, and then they figured out that he wasn't the perpetrator because of him just not knowing anything that was really going on. And and he could tell that the class was like, I don't get what you're talking about. So he just finally said it. And he said they're looking for somebody that was downloading child pornography, and they did it through my network. And so the FBI told him, look, we have to take your computer, we have to take your wireless router, we have to take all that, and all that has to be gone through. And you're not going to get it back for like 6 weeks, to let you know. But, we don't think this is you. As long as we don't find anything on your devices, then you'll be okay. He had to go out and buy a new computer. He had to buy a wireless router. He's in the middle of a semester. He can't be without a computer for 6 weeks. So he had to set all that stuff up. It really was this massive inconvenience. He finally did get his computer back. It was longer than 6 weeks. And then, he said, so, secure your network because you don't know what devious people are out there and trying to do. And I said, yeah, and you're really lucky. He says, yeah, why is that? And I said, because it's easy to hack a computer when you're on the network. And this person could have easily dumped bad stuff onto your computer in a place you didn't know. And then when they took your computer and looked at it, they would have found that stuff and then made it look like you did it. And he was like, oh, yeah. There's real consequences for these compromises. There is a real reason to make that password and passphrase as secure as you possibly can. So please do so. Uh, Use strong passwords, apply the updates. And again, in the practical, show you can just set it to auto update. And that's really important because these devices are hit all the time. And there are a lot of people out there that find the issues and find a way to get into your router, even though you do have a very secure password. Remember that router is connected to the ISP, so they're on the Wi-Fi. They're out there on it. I mean, on the internet, and so they get hit all the time from the outside, from the internet, to try to hack it. So yeah, got to keep that updated. Of course, once they're there, devices on a network can be seen to interact with each other. They can see what folders are being shared. Smart home devices, obviously, those are usually not very secure. Each connected device increases security risks, so poorly secured devices may be entry points for attackers. Yeah, yeah. So if you've got a Ring doorbell and you didn't secure that well enough because it's got its own little setup, then that could be a way in to your network. And they access your private files, unwanted print jobs. Nobody really cares too much about that, but it can cause a lot of confusion and disruption. Wi-Fi security protects personal devices and information beyond internet access, preventing unwanted interactions on your network. You really, really don't want them doing what they're probably going to do on your network. Now, there is another problem, guest networks. So to get rid of the issue of what's your Wi-Fi password? What is that? And you giving out this information to your protected network to people, yeah, that you trust, but you don't know what's happening with their device. Most medium range to high end range Wi-Fi will have a place where you can set up other networks. You can set those networks up. Now, those devices then will separate those networks. So the people that are on the guest network are not on your regular network. Your TV is on your regular network, they're on a guest network, and they can't access the TV. That's the reason they have guest networks. Most people do not set them up. So if you want to make it easy for friends, then you just say, "Oh yeah, it's this one. It's James McBride's guest network." And they hit that, and then they're not on your actual network. You're not giving them that passphrase. You're giving them one to the guest. How does that help? Well, it helps in the fact that when a hacker is seeing it, they may go after that guest network, but that won't get them into the other. So Of course, it also challenges in crowded networks. If you've got one wireless frequency that's being used by 48 devices, having a guest network or a different network will split that traffic out. Using separate guest network limits guest access, enhances security, and isolates trusted and guest users together. So public Wi-Fi, we've already talked about. There are data encryption problems with that. You don't know what they're doing with encryption. You're connecting to their public network. The fake networks often out there in the middle of nowhere, in a hotel someplace. And then other users on the same network can attempt to access nearby devices. So that's very typical. A lot of the hotels and such don't have really advanced systems like an airport would. And so what happens is you're just tying into a home Wi-Fi router, and everybody in the building is all tying into that, meaning you're all on the same network, meaning that that can lead to some vulnerabilities of people next door trying to hack you. So, all right, impact of small choices. Again, can't say it enough. Make those passwords strong. If you're going to get on public networks, be aware that it may be fake. Be aware that somebody may be monitoring you. Be aware of what your phone tells you. So, along with this stuff, when you're connecting, if it's really, really poor security, your phone will tell you that it's poor security. And that is an indication. Maybe I should think about waiting to do what I'm trying to do here. Be aware of how this all functions so that you can protect yourself. Again, if you're interested, go ahead and watch the practical where I run through, well, at least one Wi-Fi router. They're all a little different, but the settings are all the same. So I'm going to stick in that video with these are the things, right? Because of this, the screens will be different on your Wi-Fi router, but the settings that you're looking for are all the same. So if you're interested in that, watch that. And thanks. Glad you took part today.